Welcome to Beyond Sunday, where we have a cup of coffee, a conversation, and cultivate our relationships with one another in Christ. Beyond Sunday is a podcast ministry of Kindred Church, broadcasting to you from beautiful Orange County, California. And now, here's your host, Tom Grossi.
Well, hello and welcome to each of you for joining us for the second episode of Beyond Sunday, where we have a conversation, a cup of coffee, with a new guest every week. My name is Tom Grossi. I'm the Minister of Worship and Music here at Kindred Community Church and the host of Beyond Sunday podcast. We're broadcasting to you from Anaheim Hills here in our studio, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you our special guest today. But before I introduce him, I just wanted to share with you kind of the purpose of why we're doing this video podcast. You know, in my 6 years here at Kindred and leading worship, I continue to be struck by the people that I get to serve with each week. And many of them you may know and you may know very well, but as our church continues to grow, there's a lot of times and a lot of people that don't know the people that are on the platform leading them in worship. And this is just an opportunity to get to know them more than just the gifts and the talents that they have on platform on a Sunday, but to get to know them more personally, to hear their story, to hear maybe about some hobbies that they have, what they do for a living. And so I wanted to kind of go deeper a little bit with some of these guests and get to know them. And so I thought, what can we do to kind of bring that relationship beyond just a Sunday morning? So I thought, what better way to do that in a video podcast and title it Beyond Sunday? And we get to have a cup of coffee and a conversation. Well, I like the quote by Margaret Wheatley that says, life doesn't move in straight lines, and neither does good conversation. So if I'm interviewing, it's definitely not going to always move in a straight line, but I think that that's what's great about a great conversation, is that we can just kind of go back and forth and learn about each other. And my guest today is Blake Martin. Blake Martin is a dear friend and a guy that I got to know a couple of years ago, actually just on what ended up being, you subbed in, I believe, for a player that was going to be playing with us at Kindred Christmas in our orchestra, and that started a friendship from there. And I personally think that Blake Martin is the most talented and coolest dresser in Orange County for a trumpet player, folks. And so it's my joy to have Blake Martin joining us for Beyond Sunday. Blake, it's great to have you, man.
Thanks for having me.
Blake, just tell us a little bit about yourself, either your family, your occupation. Maybe a lot of people may not know. I know a lot of musicians are going to be watching the podcast. We've had several other worship leaders from other churches that have kind of been cluing in and watching us. And so there'll be other musicians as well as just members of our congregation that may not know that you do this professionally, that you're a vocational musician as well, too. They don't know about your family. And so just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's true. I guess if you looked at my 1040, I'm a professional musician. I think freelance musician is probably the best description of what I do. I feel like life is always different. I'm always doing different stuff. So I'm from Portland originally, and then I was in New York for my undergrad, and then what brought me out here to LA was USC. It was where I did my master's. So, yeah.
What school is the undergrad in New York?
It's called Manhattan School of Music. It's kind of a conservatory. It's a small school, so I think our program was, only about 80 or 90 of us in the whole program. So very small, but that was very cool because we all got to know each other really well. And, I think my graduating class was 7 people. So, wow. Yeah, at least on the jazz side.
So. You grew up in Portland, and then from Portland, you went to New York for your first collegiate experience there.
Yeah.
But it was in Portland all the way till then. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah,
wow.
Which was it was something that happened my senior year that changed everything. I think I anticipated just going to a Washington State school, I don't know, WSU or even the local community college, just save money for, the first couple of years. But thankfully, I had a friend who, we kind of did all the same stuff in high school, all the little things you had to audition for and, you did outside of school. We were together 3 to 5 days a week doing stuff. His name was Javier, so Javier and I would, hop into my car. He didn't drive, so I drove everywhere and across the river from Vancouver, Washington into Portland. So we both lived in Vancouver, actually. I've stopped telling people I'm from Vancouver because I've had to tell people I'm not Canadian, a few thousand times. And so
that's right. There is a Vancouver inside the United States borders.
That's right. So I'm from Portland. That's just what I tell people now. So, but he
Good coffee in Portland.
It's true,
right?
It's true.
Yeah,
lots of roasters, and most people know Stumptown. That's the big one that everybody talks about. So,
yeah, very nice.
Cold brew has traveled the nation at this point. It's everywhere. So,
wow. So you're at New York. You spend 4 years there, 2 years there.
4 years, yeah. Yeah, which was kind of an interesting situation. Again, I was planning on going to a Washington school, but my friend Javier had auditioned for this Grammy program, and I had no idea what that was. And he was like, "You should audition for this," you know. And at the time, I didn't know what it was, so I was just like, "Sure." So I submitted an audition, and they selected me, which was very cool, kind of a life-changing thing. So we both flew down to LA and took part in Grammy Week, you know, for that year when we were seniors. And, you know, newspaper articles and all kinds of craziness. So I think my mom still has it on her fridge, you know. So, you know, that was like our claim to fame, is that we got to do that program when we were seniors. Of course, at that point, neither one of us knew we were going to be professional musicians. So.
And mom's still up in Portland?
Yeah, my whole family, everybody. I'm the only one.
Siblings?
I have one sister.
Yeah. Younger, older?
She's younger, 2 years younger.
Younger sister in Portland.
Everybody, yeah. I'm the only one who has left. I don't think I have any family members. You know, most people have like family reunions because they've got family around the country, but yeah, no, everybody's there. So, which makes it easy though, because when I travel home, I get to see everybody. My grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, you know, the whole extended family is just, they're all there. So
4 years in New York.
4 years.
Playing professionally there, doing theater. What was kind of your main work there?
I didn't really start working in New York, honestly. I think school was a full-time thing. You know, the program is pretty rigorous. And truthfully, when I got there, I thought to myself, man, I do not belong here. You know, I walked into the room and heard the other trumpet players the first day, and I was just like, oh my goodness, I am the weakest link here. And so, you know, basically those 4 years were me just trying to keep up, you know, just learn as fast as I could, you know, holding on for dear life. That's how it felt, at least.
Wow.
So yeah, I didn't really work. I did a few things. Actually, I did a couple like gospel things. We would, I can remember playing at a couple black churches down in Brooklyn and being like the only white guy in the room. I thought it was cool. I mean, it was like, the music was killing.
Love it.
So, but yeah, just a few things like that. And yeah, but I didn't really start working until my master's. That was, you know, when I came out to LA. So it was either kind of stay in New York or come out here. And there was more money out here in terms of scholarships, so that made sense. So that was the deciding factor.
Now, to sort of pivot on that a little bit, and then I'm going to ask Blake a question. If any of you are here in Orange County and you go to Disneyland, we're only about 20, 25 minutes from the park or so, and you see a really tall blonde guy playing with Five and Dime, that's most probably Blake Martin. Blake has played with Disneyland Band and with Five and Dime and other shows in the park. And how'd you get that gig? I think that's really, really cool. And that's how I sort of heard about you when we were hiring, is knew that some of these professionals, a lot of professionals that you know in the industry are not exclusively playing at Disneyland, but they are a part of the hopper of players that play over there. So tell us a little bit about that experience and how that's been, and how it's even changed for you with COVID. We know that a lot has happened in our world in COVID, and absolutely a lot changes when it comes to freelance musicians in the COVID world, and especially when an entire park of that size shuts down. And what that sort of did to you is clearly was not an easy thing to go through, and you're still in many ways kind of going through that. But tell people how you even got involved with Disneyland and how that played out.
Yeah, so I feel like at Disney there's sort of this, it is a union job, so you do have to audition per the contract. So everybody auditions at first. So, I mean, I remember for years you'd see people at auditions, you know, and you wouldn't win a job. I think I probably auditioned 3 or 4 times before I actually was selected, which seems like it's kind of, even now, as an employee, if I want to audition for a new band, I still have to show up to the audition just like anybody else would who's not a Disney employee. So you sort of have to like win every separate placement that you have. And I've played in like 4 different bands at Disney. So Five and Dime, Disneyland Band, the Pearly Band, Mary Poppins Band, and then R.I.P. The Hook and Ladder Band, the Firehouse Band. They're no longer, but I enjoyed working with them for a short time as well. So yeah, so I went, did an audition, didn't hear anything for about 6 months. This was back in 2015-16. And all of a sudden I got a call. I was just jamming with a friend, one afternoon, and I got a call, and they were like, hey, would you still be interested? And I was like, heck yeah. So, a couple weeks later, I'm there rehearsing for 5 and 9. That's how it started. You're right. That was the first band. So, and I guess the rest is history.
Wow. So how long were you kind of consistently playing at Disneyland on top of other jobs that you were doing? And then when COVID hit, that sort of just changed everything. I mean, obviously the park closed, but not just the park, but just about all the other performing arts centers closed simultaneously as well too, making it rather interesting to make a living. And but when you were before that, how often were you generally playing there?
So it was about 4 or 5 years, I guess, from 2016 to early 2020. Yeah, I mean, I was there anywhere between 1 to 5 days a week. It kind of is like a roller coaster. It's sometimes I'm there, 3 weeks in a row, 5 days a week. That's kind of the nature of doing multiple bands, is that they would throw me around where they needed me. I wasn't just in one band sort of on a consistent basis. So I would say overall it was about maybe 30% of my work in entirety. So yeah, I mean, I was there quite a bit. But then March 14th, 2020, it was just like the hammer fell.
Kaboom.
And I was scheduled to be there at Disneyland Band that day. And they called us and they said, yeah, don't come into work today. And
yeah, there's this little virus going around.
Then we all started, looking at each other like, oh man, I wonder how long this is going to go. And then 2 weeks turned into 2 months, turned into over a year now. So
wow.
Luckily, the parks are back open now, and musicians are being called back. I anticipate within the next month or so, should get a call. Wow. But yeah, it's been, and like you said, all other work was the same way. I think apart from a couple of real small weddings, that people still wanted to have and hired a band for, which was kind of a risky endeavor, I guess, on their part. But there was a few things throughout COVID, but for the most part, everything pretty much shut down.
Yeah. Well, so you're playing at Disneyland as well as other opportunities and making your living, and then our paths cross. And I'm so grateful that our paths cross, because the ministry, the impact, the heart, the man that you are, the friend that you are. Let me tell you, folks, just a little, I told you this wouldn't be a conversation in a straight line. If you want to find out who your true friends are, move to a townhouse with furniture that weighs a couple 100 pounds and have this guy help you. A true friend will help you move, let me tell you. And Blake was kind enough a couple weeks ago to help Della and I move, and I think he could take my washer and dryer single-handedly upstairs.
Oh man!
So I'm grateful for that. But when we first met, was it 2016? Kindred Christmas?
January 1st, 2017.
2017.
Yeah. So
okay, but I thought you played Kindred Christmas that year.
No. It was January 1st, and Mike Rocha was supposed to be playing.
And it was just our normal 4-part horn section on a Sunday.
I think so.
Got it.
Yeah, and he called me New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
And I don't think I was working, which is kind of odd for a New Year's Eve, or sometimes you'll do like an early job, like a senior home or something, and they'll fake like 7 p.m. is midnight. So maybe I was doing that, but whatever it was, he called me and he was like, bro, I'm not going to make it at 7:30 in Anaheim Hills. And I went, I'll do it, which is like my answer to every gig offer, So, I showed up at 7:30. Little did I know we'd be here, 4.5 years later.
Wow. Well, Blake, you've inspired so many musicians, not only just who you are, the gifts and talents that you have. You truly are a phenomenal trumpet player, but even more so, you're a good and a godly man, a great friend, and someone that I have loved to be able to partner with in ministry. And we hang out together, we have fun together, we talk shop together. I learned from you, and it's just been a joy to have you with us. Maybe tell us a little bit of your church environment background. We know that professionally you've played Disneyland. You touched a little bit on the church that you played for in New York, but what other church experiences have you had? where you've played your instrument. I think that would be interesting. There's a lot of people that are watching that are like, I want to be the next Blake Martin, but I want to know how to get started. You know, I mean, this guy, you play so wonderfully, but it's everything. It's the entire package. It's your heart. It's the ministry approach and mindset that you have. But a lot of that is forged in being able to know how to play in a worship environment. So what are kind of some of the things that you've learned along the way that you could sort of maybe pass on to someone of what are ways in which either how you think about approaching and playing in a church service, maybe compared to a more Disneyland or professional environment? Not that church services aren't a professional environment, but you know, sometimes that's a hard switch to make.
Sure.
And you seem to always make it so graciously. I've worked with a lot of professional musicians in my life, and I mean, you are the epitome of both professional and gracious. And sometimes you don't get both. So how do you bridge that gap? How do you know how to say, you know what, I'm doing this as a service for the Lord because this is what God's given me, and tell us a little bit about that.
You know, I feel it's almost like a heart choice, you know, every Sunday morning, because when I show up to a gig, you know, it's frequent that I will pray that I would perform, you know, at my best, you know, but it doesn't, you know, given that it's not at church, you know, there's kind of a different environment, you know, so I feel like when I'm at Kindred or, you know, pre-Kindred, I would have been mainly doing holiday services, Easter, Christmas, you know, those kinds of things. So, but in terms of like just a regular Sunday performing, you know, it's my favorite Sundays because it means not only am I at church for sure, you know, because there are times when I have work on Sundays and I have to miss church. So every time you call me to play on a Sunday, it's like, this is great because I know for sure, you know, that I can commit 100% to being at church that day. And it's just kind of, it's that decision when I show up that's like, you know, of course I still want to play well, you know, and that is always like the focus when I have the horn in my hands, you know, but it's like I get to take part in corporate worship, you know, on that side of it. So, I don't know, it just kind of feels different, you know, so getting to take part in that, you know, doing what I do, but also sort of not thinking about it like a gig, I guess. You know, it doesn't feel like I'm just showing up to like make a paycheck, you know, because so much of the work that I do is that, you know, it's just showing up to like, of course, you know, try to play well and have fun, of course, but a lot of it does kind of just feel like work, you know, whereas when I'm playing at church, it's like, this isn't work at all. Like, I get to praise God and just do what I do, you know, so it's like the best marriage of work and, you know, spiritual, you know, fulfillment, like all wrapped up in one. So
that's inspiring, Blake, because people need to hear that, you know, because I think that there is a misnomer that could maybe be out there that, you know, it's very important that we don't offer to the Lord something that costs us nothing. And when you and the caliber of gifts and talents that you have, when you use that and you do that to your best, even if it's music that's not particularly challenging or difficult, but when you bring a sense of attention to that, that matters. It surely matters to me, and it matters to our choir. It matters to the congregation that you have, and that's a heart issue, you know, because you are so gifted in playing, you could practically play some of the pieces that we do with your eyes shut, but yet you do it in such a way that is inspiring, and it provides awesome leadership to those that are coming up behind you, or those that are watching you, or even those that are even older than you that aspire to play like that, which is maybe kind of pivoting on my next question. Is that, you know, we have a lot of musicians that may be watching. Some are watching maybe even from other churches. Some may not have an orchestra or do what we try to do for Kindred Christmas programs or for Easter productions or whatnot. And you and I have talked a little bit that you have some private students that you teach trumpet. And I remember you saying something that sort of resonated with me. You said, you know, private students, I really try to invest into, I give my absolute best foot to my private students because they're our future. They're the future. And, you know, private trumpet students is a much smaller pool than just finding the sweet little girl that wants to learn how to play the piano, and
true.
we love those sweet little girls that want to learn the piano, but trumpet is a little bit more specialized, right? It usually, any orchestral instrument kind of assumes that there's some kind of piano base that they've had, or maybe some kind of vocal or choral experience that they've had, and then they've kind of been selective in band, and I want to be in the brass section, I want to play trumpet. So you're a master trumpet player. In my eyes, you are. Take a minute to tell people that the trumpet is the coolest instrument to play.
Oh, man. I mean, I have second-guessed my choice to play trumpet a million times.
Hey, when I carry like 2 guitars and my banjo and sound equipment, sometimes I wish I'd have picked up the harmonica too, with all the gear that we have to carry.
It's true.
But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's a love-hate relationship, I'm not going to lie, because it's a very physical instrument, and it's an instrument that you can't really ever sleep on. Like, I can't take more than about maybe 1 or 2 maximum days off. So, in order to feel ready to play, in a professional environment. So, I feel like, and I do try to instill that in my students. It's like, we don't just get to practice in our lesson here. Like, I want you to practice all the things we talk about, implement these things when you're in school, talk to your friends about them, like bounce stuff off each other. And then when you come back to a lesson, it's about like kind of checking in on what we did last week, and then let's move on. So, and I think I've always hated teaching out of method books, specific sort of these, like let's play number 74 today, and then next week we'll play number 75. So, because I always really try to push my students, I'll give them stuff that's way too hard for them, just so that like they can experience sort of the next level. Because in school, usually the teachers have to teach to the bottom end of the orchestra. Because if you give an orchestra music or a jazz band music that's very difficult and you've got half the band that can't play it, it's really not going to go over very well. So they kind of have to aim on the bottom side. So I try to do the opposite in my lessons, and it kind of builds up this thing, whether it's
That's
range
good.
or, they're being given something that's above where they're at, but then if I don't present it as hard, if I just present it as this is what we're doing now, then, naturally they're like, all right, let's try it, and it may be way too hard, but eventually they get there, and then I can remind them where we were before and where they've come, I mean, I have a student who his name is Daniel, and he's awesome, and, I think we started 2.5 years ago, and, I mean, I think he was probably half the trumpet player he is now. Would have never placed, first trumpet in an honor band or something like that, but, as a senior, he just won first trumpet, in the district honor band, and he's soared, so it's amazing.
Wow.
So, I don't know, just always try to push them and not present it as pushing, just, give them the next thing. So.
Hey, folks, this is a free podcast, but that's worth the ticket. Just this podcast, that's worth the ticket right there for that response. That's awesome, Blake, because I think that demonstrates both your proficiency and your gift, but also your heart as a teacher and as an educator. And that's what's inspiring. That's what draws people to you. And the fact that God has given you this gift, and I truly believe it's a gift, but it's not just your playing. It's who you are. It's who you are as a teacher, who you are as a musician, as an arranger. And so I'm honored to call you my friend, and we are thrilled to have you serving with us at Kindred. Hey, man, just touch on a little bit, any hobby that you have that's kind of fun that no one might not know about you, or something that you do to try to make money when your gigs dry up. I know we talked a little bit that you do a little day trading, right? You're like a super smart, like stock market guy.
I wouldn't call me a super smart stock market guy. Anybody who thinks that they're
you've made more money in the stock market than I have. I can assure you of that. So.
I mean, I have a mentor who's great. His name is Todd, and we talk almost every day. So, we're always bouncing ideas off each other. I don't day trade a whole lot. More swing trade was like slightly longer trades, just based on fundamentals as opposed to like trying to capture a quick profit. So, but it's something that I kind of really dove into more during COVID. I had so much more time. So that's been fun. And the thing that most people find out about me sort of like after playing with me a few times is that I'm really into credit cards and points and all that whole structure. So like I have a Facebook group called Killing the Points Game. There's like over 200 people in it. It's pretty cool. So like we're always talking about, what we've been able to do with our points. And it all started by, trying to travel for free. And then, just to book a few flights, and I was like super stoked to book a couple of flights, without having to pay any money for them. And then that just grew and kept going and kept going. And, I've been able to go on some amazing trips and stuff. So it's a hobby that
we've texted, and I've seen even pictures. Blake's like, I'm in Mexico, I'm in Yosemite, I'm in New Orleans or wherever, and I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. And then you're telling me about the points and utilize for that. And then of course during COVID, the flights just dropped to rock bottom prices. So like, made it even kind of easier to go.
Yeah, I think I've been on like 24 planes this year. 24
planes.
Yeah.
Folks, 24 planes he's been on. Look at him. He's a model of health. No COVID on him, right?
True.
He's ready to go. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, so last thing, we got these really cool coffee cups here, Blake,
awesome.
and you get to keep yours, and people are probably going to be jealous of our Beyond Sunday coffee cups.
That's right.
So I always have to ask, to kind of end our podcast, it seems like this half an hour has just flown by. What's your favorite coffee drink or tea drink?
Okay.
And then if you want, you could even tell like your favorite place in Orange County or where you like to go to get your coffee. That'd even be cool too.
Okay, so I wish I had a good answer for that, but I'm kind of frugal by nature, so
nice.
I don't really buy coffee out very much, and I'm usually just a black coffee guy.
Yep.
I do like a cortado or maybe a flat white, something that is latte-like, but a little bit more coffee forward. So that's usually my go-to if I'm out and springing for a $4 cup of coffee.
Yeah, so you sound like an aficionado. You seem like you know your coffee. So do you go to a place? Do you go to a specific place?
Well, we were just talking about Bodhi, which I think is great. I feel like I don't.
I think Bodhi needs to be a sponsor of Beyond Sunday.
That's right.
I think we can work that out.
We should do that.
Yeah, we should do that. They need to watch this episode.
That's right.
That's right.
I'll have to send this to them.
Well, hey folks, it's been a blast to be able to interview and to be able to get to know Blake Martin. He's a joy with us here at Kindred Community Church, and he's just a blessing as a friend. And so I'm grateful that he's been with us for this episode. This episode will air every week, and so you can check your local, you can check Facebook, you can check YouTube for Kindred Church Anaheim Hills, and you can find us every week for a new episode of Beyond Sunday. And you could also just use any podcast app and to be able to subscribe to us. And we hope that you'll continue to watch. We hope that it's not just like, my mom and Blake's mom and the camera guy's mom that watches this thing, because this is great and fun, inspiring conversation. So have a cup of coffee on us, and we hope to see you in our next episode of Beyond Sunday. I'm Tom Grossi. God bless.
Thanks for joining this episode of Beyond Sunday, brought to you by Kindred Church. For updates and new episodes, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Kindred Church Anaheim Hills, or join us on Facebook or on our website at www.kindredchurch.org.